So in the recruiting and HR space, this whole subject of millennials, Gen Zers is a hot topic of discussion. There's discussion about how bad they are, how good they are, what they expect, how entitled. So what I thought we'd do in this Recruiter Fuel is actually assemble a group of different generations to talk about how the younger generation is looked at. So guys, thank you, gals, thank you for joining me today. So I asked the question earlier, I did a search on Google where I put in the term, why millennials suck. I just picked on millennials because that's what everybody has a tendency to do. How many responses do you think I got back?
A lot.
So it was 4.1 million articles, 4.18 or something like that, about why millennials suck. Here's some of the words and descriptors that came out, and I want to get your guys' opinion of this. Is this true? Millennials are lazy, focused on what they can get for free and not work. In other words, entitled. Say they don't care about money, but it really is all about money. Unreliable. You guys don't show up for work. Lack of loyalty. Blaming others for their financial problems, such as school debt. Now the list goes on and on and on and on, and these are real topics. So that is the foundation for this. Comments. What are your thoughts on what Google's saying about some of you who happen to believe millennials, Gen Zers, and so on? Raleigh, you've got the mic.
Guess I'll start. When it comes down to it, I don't blame at least for me, I don't blame anything that anybody else has done for what's going on in my life, unless it directly, one, affects me, such as, like my parents or something like that, but my actions are my actions.
So do you think it's fair to broad brushstroke your generation and say you're all lazy?
No, but then again, I also have some opinions about people who are like that as well.
Okay, so it's a real conversation, right? There's no right or wrong. This is all opinion based, and I want everybody's opinion on this. What's the opinion?
I somewhat agree with it because I grew up in a far different household than lots of other people, once again, but I had work ethic instilled in me to show up on time. If you're late, if you're early, you're late. If you're way early, you're on time.
Got it. And so are you saying that maybe others don't actually follow that?
Yeah.
Because they grew up differently?
That could be part of it.
All right, Hannah's got a comment. She's got her hand right in front of your face. Hannah, what's your thoughts?
I think things have changed, right? So what was valued by the older generations just isn't valued the same as our younger generation.
Give me an example of that, though, because that's something that I hear nonstop. So as I was doing my research, it came up, but I couldn't get any specifics.
Well, I think the older generation, a lot of them looked as companies as like they had to be loyal to them and building a long-term career with them. But they got to remember that was due to like having a pension and things like that. We don't have that anymore. There is no loyalty. Yes, we are going to move on to the next better paying job because that's how it works these days.
Anybody else comment on that? Is that true for all of you? Please, Jen.
I think so. I think even people who have been with companies a long time, those companies are getting rid of pensions and things like that.
Yeah,
so
they're so expensive, right?
Yeah. So I have to agree. Those core values that were there for companies that really stood behind their employees and took care of them. As the world changed, I think those had to change too.
So do you think the description as a result of now what you're saying, Hannah, is accurate then, that there is no loyalty? Or are you kind of on the fence there?
No, I would say I'm on the fence. I would just say they're motivated by different things. I think the younger generation are motivated more for altruistic reasons.
Give me an example. I got somebody shaking their head too, so tell me what that means.
I mean, we're bringing a lot of green efforts to the world right now. We're trying to expand our diversity. We're just bringing a lot of newer age things to the forefront, and that's what's important to us, having an effect, I think, on the culture and society as a whole, as opposed to just yourself or your family is more important to folks.
Dana, please. So Dana's our only Gen Z here, right?
Hi.
What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, something interesting about Generation Z is that where millennials might have been more optimists, we're a lot more realistic, and even on the pessimistic side. We don't want to see a company that we don't want to see that, oh, we're trying to do all these good things. We want to see that there's actually something behind it. And so that might play into the part in why people say, oh, the younger generations aren't as loyal. We want to see that a company actually values something important to us
For
because
example, like what? What would be something, now speak specifically for yourself, not for your generation, that would be of interest to you in a company?
something that would be of interest to me in a company would be a concern for diversity of race, gender, and just inclusion of all kinds, to not discriminate against other people. Other things that I feel I really value are caring about the environment. I know that's something that a lot of younger people are starting to get behind, but really caring about the environment and your impact has been something that is not only of concern to me, but I know of a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I talk to. Just want to make sure that if we work for a company, we don't want it to be they're giving us all these shiny promises. We want to see that, okay, they're actually doing something. There's actually people behind this company. We
Sure.
want to see that it's real.
Jeff, you were shaking your head a little bit earlier. Yeah. What's your thought on this?
No, as far as loyalty goes, there's a lot of good points made across the board. If you're loyal to me, I'm going to be loyal to you. Are you investing in me?
And what does that mean, though? So in being real, as Dana's talking about, what does investing in you mean? And I don't mean just here because you happen to work for us, but just what's your personal opinion of that?
Sure. So college can only take you so far. When you get
Okay.
out into the workforce, what is my employer going to do to take me to the next level? How are they going to invest and hone in on my skills, help me find out what I'm good at, and really develop that?
Got it? Brett, you're sitting right next to him?
I feel one of the big things that I look for in a company is training and development, right?
Okay.
How are you going to help develop me? How are you going to help train me? And not only how do you train others, and how do you develop others as well? So that's a huge thing for me. And like Jeff said, a college degree only takes you so far.
So question to all of you, do you think this is, the things you're talking about, maybe with the exception of the green environment that the two of you mentioned, do you think it's that different from previous generations?
Yes.
It is? Why? Why do you say that? Hannah, you emphatically, yes. Why do you think it's different?
I truly think it all comes down to our motivations and what we value, and it's drastically different than what my parents did.
So give me an example without throwing your parents under the bus. You got to be nice, but where would there be this disconnect between their values and potentially your values?
I would say gender equality.
Okay, fair.
I grew up in a very patriarchal type of thing. You are expected to get married and have kids and clean house, and the man brings home the money.
And that may not be for everybody.
No, that's not for me, and that's not for a lot of my friends
Yeah.
and family. I know a lot of women these days see themselves as career women,
Sure,
and not necessarily as moms,
sure.
as the first and forefront. So I think
It's a
it-
personal choice.
it is, and I think, but the reason why there are these huge disparities is because it all comes down to values, and they're just very, very different. And I think it just goes to show when you even just take a look at the last elections.
Well, we're not going to go political on this one.
No, but I'm just
This
saying.
is not the place for that. This
I'm
is
just
about
saying.
millennials and Gen Zers in the workforce. So, Justin,
Values are different. That was
when
the
I
whole point.
had to thank you. When I sent out the email for, hey, I want to get some millennials on this panel, right? So think of this as like Fox News or NBC or whatever the case is, right? Here is my in-house panel. You jumped on it. You were the first one to respond and said, somebody's got to talk for the millennials.
Yeah, I think when it comes to millennials in the workplace, I think a lot of the reasons why people seem to see them as not working as hard or not having, the goals or the ethics is because what you have is millennials need to have a work and life balance. And a lot of times if the life balance isn't there, the work will suffer. So if you have an employer who doesn't give you the opportunities you need to also have a successful life outside of work, a lot of times that can show in your daily routines at work. You might not
Sure.
be putting in the work that you would normally be if you were happy elsewhere. So I think a lot of millennials do struggle with that. I think another thing that's kind of shaping the millennials right now is the No Child Left Behind policy that they started in schools when we were very young.
Yeah.
And that was kind of put in place to make sure that no child would underdevelop. They would always be helped to overdevelop, and they were given mentors usually.
So how does that manifest itself now in the workplace?
So when a millennial in the workplace who wants to strive and do well gets a mentor that can further their progress, a lot of times they'll go very far and they can move up very rapidly.
Sure.
But if you have someone in a workplace that's a millennial that's not given guidance and not kind of left to stay static, they will often just divert to doing whatever they can.
So
and-
let me play devil's advocate on that for a second. Do you
Mhm.
really think that's just for millennials?
So that's the thing is, no, I don't. I think pretty much every generation is more or less the same. It's just how other people view them is skewed.
So play on that, Anthony. You're in this group as well, right? So it goes to my earlier question of, are you guys really that? So I'm the oldest one in the room. Let's just call it what it is, right? So I'm not sure that anything that you've said thus far is different than what I thought when I was your age. What do you think about that?